Chapter 2: The Telephone Number. It was half buried below a bench outside of Building 8, thick and glossy, where everything else was paper-thin, dog-eared, and marked with some sort of Navy security stamp. The front of the brochure showed a coastline, not of Charleston but of another beach Eric thought to be more tropical than that of South Carolina. The inside had a single line stating seeking technical experts. There were no names, no logos of any company. Eric thought it seemed odd until he turned it over. On the back, scribbled in handwriting, was a number. The same number that was on the business card the man left on his roof the night before. A week later, Eric saw the same man in the gray suit again. This time, though, the man was leaning on the coffee truck outside the simulator building. Eric noticed him looking his way, almost as if the mysterious man was watching him with a casual gaze. Eric let the surrounding crowd swallow him, but when he reached his locker, he found it ajar. A sticky note was hanging on the ledge inside. Eric grabbed it and eyed it front and back. Written on it was "Call when you are ready." No name, no signature, but the same number as before. That night, back in his apartment, his classmate and roommate Sanji cornered him. Sanji asked him, "You good man, you have been different lately." Eric shrugged it off. "Just studying," he said, but the lie sat heavy on his shoulders. Another notification came in the mailbox. A plain envelope with a letter inside, this time a typed note. "Continue to do what it is that you are doing. Accuracy always matters. Contact only if you want to hear interesting career options." The same number was printed at the end. It was still the absence of answers that Eric wanted. At this time, Eric thought that the rational thing to do about this situation was to report it. He chose not to, though. Something inside his brain tugged at his body about drawing light to this situation felt worse than letting it hover. A couple of days later, an instructor Eric had never interacted with or seen before called him into his office before he was set to leave for the day. The man was wearing a Navy uniform that seemed to belong to two different sizes as it hung weirdly on his body. When Eric entered the office, the man closed the door and studied him with an expression that Eric could not read. "You are sharp. Not many students move like you do when they are under failure. Where do you see yourself when this schooling is done?" the man said. Eric eyed him and gave an automatic answer. "In the fleet, on a surface ship. I would like to be on the West Coast to get away from this area since I grew up here, but I will go wherever the Navy sends me." The man eyed him for a second and responded, "You will be given some offers that are different than the normal Navy route. Don't decide on them when you are tired." Eric thought about the man and the weird statements he was saying. Then Eric's mind flashed back to the brochure, the envelope, the number on all of them, burning a circle in his mind. After that interaction, there were a few others. None of it was direct to Eric, none of it was official. It seemed to be pressure to something, and Eric wanted to know what it was. Curiosity finally became inevitable. He picked up his cell phone and dialed the number, now burned into his memory from seeing it so many times. A man picked up on the second ring. His voice was smooth and unhurried. He directed Eric to a conference room in a hotel far nicer than anything his Navy pay could justify. Eric should have hung up. Any sane person would have. He stared at his phone long after the call ended. He knew he should delete the number, forget the voice, and go on with his life. But something in his mind would not let this go. It was not curiosity, not exactly. It was more like his thoughts had already made up their mind as he looked down at his hand and realized he already had his keys in his hands, as if his mind had already made the decision without letting anything else in his body know. Logic told him this was stupid. Instinct told him to keep going. And instinct won. Eric crossed the lobby of the French Quarter Inn. The air was cool and perfumed, and followed the directions the receptionist at the front desk gave him to the conference room. At the end of the carpeted hallway, a single door waited. Behind the quiet door, a woman sat at a polished table with a calm glance as Eric entered the room. From where she sat with her proper posture and unreadable expression, he noticed there was nothing on the table but a pitcher of water and an envelope. She didn't raise her voice. She did not need to. "This is the moment where you make a decision," she said softly. Eric hesitated. "I think there is some kind of mistake." After a brief moment, the woman said calmly, "You have been noticed. You can walk out of this room and nothing changes. You go back to prototype and graduate, your Navy path will continue. Or," as she tapped the envelope the same way the man in the parking lot tapped the business card, "you can choose this path and see what is on the other side." Eric grabbed the envelope. All that was inside was a train ticket to Virginia. There was a date and a time, and a small note written on the bottom: "Bring only what you are not willing to lose." The woman looking into Eric's eyes finally smiled and said, still calmly, "Welcome to the CIA."